You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Ricky Camilleri. On Tuesday, I hosted a discussion about GamerGate, and things got heated, to say the least. Many viewers chimed in, both in our HuffPost Live comment section as well as on Twitter, where they continued to chime in all night and into the morning, and I responded to some of you. Hey, guys. One particular voice may have been left out of the debate here on the HuffPost Live set, though, and that's female gamers who support GamerGate. Joining me now to offer their take on the conversation, we have Georgina Young, a staff writer at Game-Sided, gamer Gemma Morgan, and Jenny Barrage, who hosts her own YouTube about the video game industry. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Hello.
Hiya. Hello.
So Jenny, you were live tweeting during the segment yesterday. Here is one thing that you said about the segment. That was a horrible GamerGate. Isn't about misogyny, 8chan, or neutrality. I should have been in this debate. I'm pissed off. So now you're joining us now, and we want to hear your side. What is GamerGate, and how do you think people are misunderstanding it?
Before I get into that, I apologize for my passion. I do tend to tweet a lot when I'm very passionate about things I feel that is important. So when it does come to GamerGate, I have been noticing that it has been heavily misunderstood as a social revolt against women and minorities, and that is essentially not the case. If it was the case, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you right now, nor my colleagues Georgina or Gemma. So GamerGate is essentially a consumer response against corrupt journalism in the gaming industry. Mm-hmm. And we've been having suspicions of these collusions for several years, and I think due to the catalyst that happened in August 2014 revolving a sex scandal, we've essentially been tipped over the edge, so to speak, and we have now created the GamerGate hashtag.
Mm-hmm. How often, I have to ask you, Jenny, how often does this ethical journalistic problem that you have tend to fall into when gamer websites, when journalists for gamer websites end up sort of talking about women and minorities in the gaming industry? It seems to me that gamers get really upset by the inclusion of these narratives inside of talking about games, rather than just talking about the gaming experience itself. Or is that just a fringe minority of the GamerGate group?
I don't really understand your question. Are you asking whether we're angry that there's more of a gender issue when it comes to games?
Yeah. It seems to me that some people in the GamerGate community seem to get upset and wrap themselves up in this conversation, not because of a sort of corruption problem, but because a lot of gaming sites now talk about feminism, now talk about minority inclusion, and they seem to say, we want our game conversations, our gaming sites to talk about games and the experience of playing these games, not about a minority opinion or including minorities.
Exactly, and it does anger us only because this isn't really an issue to begin with. I mean, we have so many prominent female figures in the gaming industry. We have Jane McGonigal, we have Robin Hunicke, creator of the MDA framework, we have Jade Raymond, and if we're talking about game devs, we've had amazing games created by female developers. For example, Uncharted, we have King's Quest, we have Legacy of Kain. These issues revolving around feminism and gaming, it's irrelevant. It shouldn't be an issue.
Well, I think people should have the right to talk about it via gaming websites. Georgina, do you think GamerGate started off about journalistic ethics and has now been, the conversation has been co-opted?
Well, what I would say is that I don't think the conversation has been co-opted. The thing is that even now there is a lot of sort of, in the media, it's very one-sided in that when you're looking at the articles that are in the media at the moment, they're all, GamerGate is this angry white, neckbeard, cisgendered male living in his mum's basement, covered in zits or whatever, and this is what, there was 11 articles posted on the same day, on August 8th, which all said this thing, and they said that gamers are misogynist and angry, and these are who these people are. But it simply wasn't true. It wasn't true at all, and that's why things came up like Not Your Shield and things like that, because the gaming industry was writing that simply that, you know, people like us, women, minorities, don't exist within the gaming industry, and they were acting like they were protecting us, when actually it was all, you know, sort of this cover. And the people of GamerGate who, you know, genuinely want to talk about this, like, controversy in journalism where, you know, things are being covered up. For example, you hear all about the harassment of several prominent figures who are against GamerGate, but you don't hear about the daily harassment of people that are pro-GamerGate. For example, Boogie is a really classic one. His wife was sent a death threat and was doxxed recently. And Gigi Feminist before that, she was also doxxed, and she's just a Twitterer. And I think that a lot of these stories aren't covered, and that's what's upsetting people. And really what GamerGate, the vast majority of what GamerGate is speaking about, if you actually talk to the people and read the threads and read their perspective, the vast majority of people are talking about journalism. But the narrative was always taken away to the fact that they're saying they don't want women in video games, or they don't want minorities in video games, and we just want to talk about video games. But it's not the case at all. We're all fighting for the same thing. We're fighting for better games. And the fact is that we're not given that chance to say it, because everyone's saying that, you know, all GamerGaters are misogynists and they don't want this, and they're this angry nerd.
I want to ask the three of you one quick question right here now that we have you here, because we have three women who play video games, who support GamerGate. I want to say, do you support equality for women in the gaming industry, and do you think it's an important conversation to have? Gemma?
Yes.
Yeah, obviously.
No, just a quick answer, because I want to get the three of you to say this out loud. Gemma, do you support equality for women in the gaming industry, and do you think it's an important conversation to have, and that the anti-GamerGaters and pro-GamerGaters can really come together on this one issue that they really both seem to support?
Well, do you know, I'd like to just point out one thing with this whole thing. Why do you think the opposition keeps using the word misogynist? Think about the word
Gemma, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm going to get to you specifically on this in 1 second. I just want to see if there is a common ground between the anti and the pro on this one particular issue. It seems like there is.
But that's the problem. You keep moving this goalpost to say it's about women, and this has nothing to do with women. It is about journalistic integrity, and this is what's important. Women are not important in this conversation about ethics. It's like saying, do you think black people should be allowed to work in the industry? Of course, black people. You know, anybody, if you are willing to work hard to make a good game that people enjoy, it doesn't matter what your sex is, what you identify as, all that matters is your game. And like I said, think of it like this. This word misogyny keeps coming up. Why do you think the word misogyny keeps coming up? Because it's an easy way to deflect any and all criticism from the real issue. And this is what we have a problem with.
What's the real issue?
It's gay.
Guys, stop interrupting. I'm asking Gemma a simple question. We're not going to be able to have a real conversation. We're not going to be able to get any points across if everybody interrupts each other and doesn't answer the questions that are on point. Gemma, what is the real issue? I'm sorry for getting upset, but I don't want people interrupting. Gemma.
The real issue is that we have a terrible problem with nepotism, with cronyism. The general ethics, we have tenant and landlord, game devs and games journalists, and then writing positive reviews and leading people to come and buy their games. You can't tell me this isn't a major issue. And the inclusion, I mean, we just recently had a game released that got glowing reviews from every single games website. But one website that happens to be involved in this collusion docked points because they deemed it incredibly sexist. Now, this kind of thing shouldn't be in an objective review. If you want to talk about feminism in gaming, do it on another platform. But if you're going to give a review of a game, you need to be objective. Your personal ideology is not here. We don't want to know what your personal ideology is. We just want to know if the game is good. That's all we want to know.
But
we don't need the inclusion of an ideology.
But to push back a little bit, I'm a film buff. I read movie reviews all the time. The majority of movie reviews that I read come to it with academic, intellectual lenses in the approach to their reviews, be it feminist, be it Marxist, be it any other kind of academic lens that the reviewer has hopefully been educated on, they bring to their experience in watching that movie. Why is it not important for a reviewer of a video game? Why should video games be excluded from any other kind of academic lens when approaching a review?
I will give you a perfect example of a fantastic critic, and it's Jenny right here. Her videos have a fantastic critique of video games, but she isn't coming from it in an ideology. She's coming with it with a fair and balanced view. Now, the problem with injecting feminism into gaming is that it's a strong ideology that's already got a predetermined conclusion that women are oppressed, that there is such a thing as the patriarchy. Now, you know, there's nothing wrong with people being critical of video games, but a lot of these prominent figures are not included, you know, are not willing to discuss their glaring, you know, conclusions. You know, there is clearly wrong, you know, wrong conclusions on some of these things. It's an issue, and I don't think someone's personal ideology should come into gaming journalism. I don't think that people should be giving, you know, positive press to who they're sleeping with, who they have a relationship with, a friendship with. I don't think they should be donating to their Patreon for just existing. This is a problem, and this is what keeps getting forgotten in the conversation, is that it isn't about misogyny. People, gamers do not hate women.
Okay, I want to take Gemma. I want to take what you said to Jenny here, because I believe there's two things that you're saying, Jen, and Jenny, if you could respond to this. One is that, yeah, there shouldn't be collusion in reviewers and game developers in the fact that whether or not they're paid, whether or not they slept with the person, they shouldn't be writing a good review based on that. But at the same time, Gemma's also saying that video game reviews shouldn't address ideological standings that the game may or may not have. Why is that the case, Jenny? Is GamerGate about one or the other, or both?
GamerGate is essentially about corrupt journalism. Gemma had a great point, because these corrupt journalists, what they're doing is they're going against the code of ethics in accordance to the Society of Professional Journalism. This is highly unprofessional, and I'd like to take the time right now to list some of the websites who are involved in this corrupt journalism right now. They are the following: Kotaku, Polygon, Ars Technica, Rock Paper Shotgun, Gamma Sutra, and NeoGAF. These are the prominent figures of the gaming journalism industry today, and they need to be told off. It's not right what they're doing.
So let's change gears a little bit. Let's concede that there are trolls, that there are extreme trolls out there who have harassed and threatened certain people who've spoken out against GamerGate and those who have spoken for GamerGate. And that you would all say, Georgina, you would say they don't speak on behalf of the greater movement, right?
Oh, absolutely no way. And I'd like to say for a start, I've never said that I'm a GamerGate supporter. I'm quite neutral on the subject. But on both sides, I would say the vast majority of the death threats and the harassment is probably done by a number of one or two specific individuals and trolls on both sides. You know, there's never, when you have such a large group of people, for example, the subreddit Kotaku in Action for GamerGate has 11,000 subscribers, so you know it's a huge movement, and there is always going to be a couple of people within that movement who, you know, aren't doing the nicest of things, and you're never going to stop that with a movement of this scale. But at the same time, the vast majority of GamerGaters that I've spoken to, they're the nicest, intelligent, respectable people, and they came and they approached me because of my article, which was actually sort of hanging slightly on the anti-GamerGate side. When I wrote it, they came to me and they said, well, if you want to know more about GamerGate, then we're more than welcome, you know, to answer the questions. On the other side, with the anti-gators, they banned me. They called me, am I allowed to swear? They called me shitty. They started sending me harassing tweets. And actually, I felt that if anything, I was slightly fighting for them. But now I'm definitely completely, you know, neutral, if not leaning on the GamerGate side, because everyone there has been nothing but nice to me, and everyone on the other side has started to harass me, actually.
Ricky, I'd like to add on to that. Just the fact that these harassments, they're left and right, essentially. And we cannot just pinpoint these harassments onto specific movements. I mean, the harassments that Brianna Wu has been getting, all these other harassments, they have not been directly linked to GamerGate. So for you to say and for you to discuss these harassments and misogyny and all that in relation to GamerGate, I find that very offensive, because GamerGate does not stand for that at all.
Mm-hmm. But that's you as one supporter of GamerGate
that is
saying
not me as one supporter,
well,
Ricky. This is a mass movement. We are not focused on misogyny. We are not focused on harassment. If you go to 8chan, the forums for GamerGate, there's sticky posts that directly say, we are not going to harass anyone. We are not going to threaten anyone. I encourage you to check it out. GamerGate is not about threatening other people. We are all human beings, and all we want is journalistic integrity.
Absolutely.
I'd just like to add to that, I'd just like to add to that, you know, we keep coming back to this issue of misogyny, and it's just not the case. You know, you've seen us, 3 women here. We love video games. We adore video games. Whenever somebody we have seen has been harassed, first people to jump onto it and say quickly, get this person down now, has been GamerGate. Yet, whenever there is harassment, it is pinned on us, and there is no proof at all that it's connected to GamerGate. You have no proof, and it is really upsetting to see that GamerGate is being tagged and being assaulted by this, you know, with these tags saying that we're a misogynistic movement. We don't want women in games. You've got 3 women here who strongly support, you know, ethics in games journalism. You know, we do not support harassment, but you cannot empirically prove that it was GamerGate who had anything to do with this harassment, and it's frankly insulting.
Okay, I'm just going to say this. I have 3 women that I'm talking to right now who support GamerGate. As an interviewer, I have to be somewhat objective. I have to play devil's advocate in order to make a conversation happen. I can't sit here and just agree with everything that the 3 of you say. And I have people on Twitter who are doing this as well. Ricky, stop asking questions of the forum. So have you stopped beating your kids yet? Yes, we all believe in equality. There's lots of other questions. This is incredible. Ricky Cam gets 3 women on his show so he can constantly interrupt them and ignore all points they bring up. I can't sit here and I can't say, yes, this is true. Yes, you are right every time. I want the GamerGate people who are watching this, who are tweeting me right now, to know that it is not my job to sit and say, Georgina, Gemma, Jenny, you are right. It's my job to initiate, engage, and have a conversation, and to, in some capacity, reflect the other side of that conversation in order to get them to continue to talk. Jenny, I have to ask you a question, again, about feminism. And my question here is, so often it seems that supporters of GamerGate also support issues against feminism. They support YouTube videos. They support statements against certain types of feminism. How can GamerGate really extricate itself from criticizing feminism, seeming misogynistic, and these threats? Because it seems like you really want to. Do you feel like you have a responsibility to really pull GamerGate away from that in terms of how the media perceives it, and how do you think you can do that?
Ricky, I'm glad you brought this up because when you say that GamerGate is against feminism, they're not against the majority of the feminist group. What they're against is the radical feminist movement, the ones that call themselves social justice warriors. These women and men are essentially very negative. They want men to just disintegrate. It's not right what they're doing. They become professional victims in a sense, telling us that we should check our privilege every now and then. There's no opportunity for us to even discuss the issues of feminism.
Jenny, if you're finished, could I say something?
Yes, please, Georgina, go ahead.
Yeah, I would also say that there are plenty of feminists in the movement, and a lot of sex-positive feminists are also part of the GamerGate movement. I myself am a sex-positive feminist, and I think that the media is portraying GamerGate to be an anti-feminist movement, but it's not. I mean, there are a couple of non-feminist people within GamerGate, same as there will be non-feminist people within any movement or any group of people. But in general, I think a lot of GamerGaters are looking for the inclusion of women within video games. I mean, I'm personally looking for inclusivity in video games, and from what I've heard from female developers and stuff, they've said that they feel very welcomed within the gaming industry. And I just think that the movement is tarred with this brush in mainstream media, which is exactly what we're talking about in the corruption in mainstream media. And that, you know, if you want to see the real perspective, get out there and talk to GamerGaters and meet them, and you'll see that they're this lovely bunch of people and they will answer all your questions, and the vast, vast, vast majority of them are pro-feminism or want to see more women in gaming. And that's what you have to do.
Sorry, can I just add that, there are so many diverse people in the movement. You know, there are so many different political identities. We have left, we have right, we have so many different ethnicities. We have women, we have men, we have transsexuals, we have everybody here. We have gays, straight. There are so many different people here, and to label all of us, millions of tweets, and to say we're an anti-woman campaign, even though there are strong women in this. I personally don't identify as a feminist, but no way have I ever, been attacked for not being a feminist. I've never attacked anybody who is a feminist, and there are so many strong, powerful voices in GamerGate who all we want to do is play games and enjoy games without being told we are horrendous people for doing so. Is that really too much to ask, to enjoy video games without the stigma of being called misogynist, of being tarred with hating women?
Yesterday, Eric Kane joined us, and he said it's troubling how easy it is to blame faceless GamerGate for the industry's women problems rather than address the structural issues. So I'm curious, Jenny, what are the structural issues that need to be addressed?
In regards to,
in regards to the gaming industry.
The structural, this is exactly what GamerGate is for. We're talking about the relationship that consumers have with the journalism world in gaming. We see publicists and journalists have this corrupt relationship where they have incentives and we have publicists giving money to these journalists to have to give their games a very good score. It's things like this where we do feel like there needs to be a restructuralization.
Mm-hmm. I have a question about social justice warriors before we wrap up. Georgina, there's something to me that seems odd or off about referring to social justice warriors as a condescending term. It reminds me of Republicans referring to liberals as do-gooders or bleeding hearts. Rather than addressing the specific criticisms that you have, referring to someone negatively as a social justice warrior seems that it would do more harm than good for the GamerGate community. Am I wrong in that, Georgina?
I think the term social justice warrior came from the term which they use, which is social justice fears. And so we just put warrior in the end. I say we, I didn't come up with that term. I would say that not everyone uses that term, and it is slightly derogatory, but I think at the same time that a lot of these people are sort of, they're sort of using like misogyny or, you know, racism or terms like this as like sort of a shield instead of talking about the issue, which is the journalism and the journalistic integrity. And I guess it is used as a derogatory term. We're not talking about people who are feminists or who are like anti-racism or whatever and fighting for these things within gaming. What we're talking about, I guess, when we're talking about social justice warriors, is people who are using misogyny, like racism, ableism, so on, to deflect the true issue of the journalism. And so they're just using it as a shield to deflect the journalism, and that's what we should be talking about.
I'd like to add on to that. For all those social justice warriors out there, before you accuse me of being sexist and ignorant, let me remind you that I am a female, I am a feminist, and I am an ethnic minority. I suggest you listen and believe to what I'm saying right now.
Georgina, Gemma, Jenny, we have to wrap up. It's been really nice talking to you guys. I wish it wasn't virtual so I could jump in and give you guys a bit of a hug, because I think maybe I lost my cool a little bit for a minute trying to get all of us to talk at one time.
You were great.
Oh,
No, yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. Georgina, Gemma, Jenny from the GamerGate community. Well, not necessarily you, Georgina, if I remember correctly. You're neutral.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining me and having this conversation. And GamerGate, as it continues, is something that I think I'll probably continue to talk about on HuffPost Live, or if not on HuffPost Live, definitely in my Twitter feed, which I'll be on in just a couple minutes. Keep watching HuffPost Live. There's a lot more coming up.